The sports game market is estimated to be at $9.22 billion per year, but their current business model of releasing a game every single year is quite flawed, as the consumers are getting tired of buying essentially the same game every single year, with each game only having minor tweaks, such as the rosters. With these factors in mind, the question that we need to ask is whether sports games should become a free-to-play live service game such as Fortnite, or should they continue the path of annual releases? To help me answer this question, I have brought on the biggest sports fanatic which I could find. So just for context, this is going to help explain to anyone listening on your background in this topic. What's the last sports game that you purchased? And was it live service, or did you have to pay $70?
The last sport game that I would have purchased would have been NHL 21, and that was kind of in the middle of the COVID pandemic. You know, we weren't really going out, so why not drop some more money on the EA and NHL franchise? And that one, it was a $70 purchase, where I didn't actually purchase the physical game, but the digital copy itself.
And within, just for context, 'cause I'm not that familiar with these sporting games, did you have to pay, or were there the options to pay for microtransactions in the game? Or was it just you pay once and everything is yours?
Oh, no, there definitely were microtransactions. I find EA, and you can ask any sport fan, whether it's for hockey or football, aka the European and more worldwide known version of football.
Like the FIFA games.
Yeah, exactly, the FIFA. I think they used to be called FIFA, or now they're called FC. There was definitely the option to spend more money on the game, especially with one of the more popular options, which is called for hockey, it's called Hockey Ultimate Team, or HUT. And essentially this is the part of the game where you work your way up from like a pretty mediocre at best team with a couple of NHLers the game gives you for free, so you're not dealing with a whole bunch of random nobodies. And you know, you work your way up, you try to get all the players that you want, but the game definitely always has an incentive for you to purchase packs throughout the entire year, you know, so you can level yourself up, try to get as good of a team as possible, and, you know, skip ahead through some of the grinding aspects of the game.
Wait, so I don't get it. So they're charging you full price for the game, and then they're putting in microtransactions for the game that actually affect the gameplay, not just like a cosmetic thing that, at the end of the day, who would care if you have a new jersey for a team that you maybe don't have? If you have the Toronto Maple Leafs 67 jersey, would it really make any difference in the game than playing in the Toronto Maple Leafs 2021 jersey or 2022?
Definitely not on my end. I know there are definitely options in the game where you don't have to spend money on microtransactions, but especially in the Hockey Ultimate Team aspect of the game, it definitely gives you a competitive advantage, not just even on the cosmetics part, but on the overall aspect of improving your team. You know, you want your Sidney Crosby, your Connor McDavid, your Alex Ovechkin, and some of your better NHLers. The problem is good luck actually getting not only the base version of them, but throughout the year they'll have special edition Halloween themed cards, or Christmas themed cards, or Team of the Year edition cards. Good luck getting those just randomly in a pack. You're going to want to spend a lot of money for that one. And so it's definitely one of those things that I found 10 years ago was an interesting aspect of the game, the Hockey Ultimate Team option part of it. As the time has gone on, I think it's become just almost commonplace with these sport franchises, that they expect you, okay, you're going to play online, you're going to want to start your team from scratch, or you're going to want to play as yourself or this creative player, and they're going to basically make it so that, okay, we'll cap your overall growth if you're just one of those grinders, but if you really want to upgrade, fork over more cash.
And Juby, just to clarify, this mode, is it PvP or is it only on your own?
There's a bit of both. You can do traditional, just you against the computer, or against computer controlled teams that of people that actually do play in the game. And there is that one-on-one aspect of, trying to connect with someone online and to play your ultimate team against their ultimate team. I found as time went on, though, that aspect of the game was a lot more of a pain than to be actually something I look forward to. I know for the most part, when I purchased NHL 21, I did do the Hockey Ultimate Team, but I would pretty much just play exclusively against the computer because I found that trying to connect to play with someone online, you're going to get lagging, you're going to get all these issues of people, it says, oh, hey, you're roughly the same player level, and then you log, and then it matches you up, and then basically it matches you up and you realize, oh, here's someone who has like a team that is far and away way better because
like the God Squad.
Exactly. You have your
they got the God Squad and they spend $200 of their own money to make sure they got it. Where you're sitting on chump change playing on skill. And even though you could win with the skill, it almost sounds like a situation of pay to win.
Absolutely. And that's such a big thing, I think, with these companies. Like, I get it. You're going to go wherever the money is. But at the end of the day, I think a lot of people, it turns them off if you're trying to really get people to join and to try these online modes, that I think it really just sort of takes away from the game. And so, you know what? Maybe you only want to play Hockey Ultimate Team because, you want to start with this team from scratch. Maybe you want to buy a few packs here or there, but you're not going to spend any additional money when the game's already $70, $80, $90 Canadian, or maybe a little bit cheaper if you're American, or depending on wherever you are in the world. But the thing is like, say you're a little kid and your favorite player is Connor McDavid. He's the best player in the NHL right now. One can argue maybe he isn't, but he is.
Not David Savard?
Oh boy, someone put David Savard in this guy's head, and someone else needs to tell him this guy's he's a defensive defenseman. So his edition of the card, when the best card in the game could be like a 94, for example, he's at best an 81. You obsessed with an 81 overall defensive defenseman who can't skate but can lay big hits. So you got to stop that right now, man. You got to stop that. But yeah, essentially, you're going to have base Connor McDavid, who by the time someone, if you're lucky enough, you can pull him in a card, or, you grind and you save up your coins. By the time you can get the base Connor McDavid, oh, look at that. You have Halloween-themed Connor McDavid, who's like 5 overall better. And then later on in the year, you have Team of the Year edition Connor McDavid, where all of his stats are maxed out. So what's the point of a base McDavid, who at best is like a 94 or so in the game, when you're eventually going to get a 99 overall perfect stats Connor McDavid? What's the point?
But do these different stats on them, do you get to keep it? Like, theoretically, you have a Halloween Connor McDavid, as you specify. Once you get to Christmas time, are you still able to use the Halloween? And let me give you an example. If you look at Fortnite as a game, it's a live service game and there's no entry fee to play. If I bought a skin all the way back in 2018, 2019, when the game first started, I still have access to it now, and it makes no difference in terms of competitive gameplay. Do you still retain access to these things?
I know for those games, you didn't. It doesn't carry over year. You can essentially have it within your storage if you want to go back to the game and you want to look at how cool your team was from the previous year. But the thing is, how many people are playing the previous year's edition of a game when you have the new version, where depending on what happens with your team or your players, you're upgrading to that new one. So as an example, a huge Toronto Maple Leaf fan, go Leafs go, it's our year. I don't really believe what I said, but I hope that.
Every year.
Not every year. This year, team's looking sick. I just hope the defense can hold up. Oh, you knew it was coming no matter what. Let's be real.
I mean, I picked a sports topic with you. I should have seen that coming.
Big Leaf fan, by the way. Go Leafs, go. But as a Leaf fan, for example, because there are still tons of us out there, we have a few new players on the team. One of them, his name is Tyler Bertuzzi, and he's like, if you were to compare going on the David Savard to Connor McDavid scale, I'd say he's closer to Connor McDavid than David Savard, but still more in that middle range. Like, he's your good complementary piece. He brings his own elements. However, the game doesn't really capture all of those elements. So like, he is a bit of a pest. He'll steal your stick as he's going to the bench, which is something he did on the team he got traded to last year, which was the Boston Bruins, funny enough. He was one of their better playoff performers, but now he's on the Leafs. And I, as a Leaf fan, hey, I want Tyler Bertuzzi I want to play with Tyler Bertuzzi on the Leafs. What's the point of playing the previous year's edition that only updates to a certain date? You're not going to get Tyler Bertuzzi as a Leaf in the system. You can purchase the Detroit Red Wings card Tyler Bertuzzi, or you can get the Boston Bruins card Tyler Bertuzzi, but you're not going to get a Toronto Maple Leafs themed Tyler Bertuzzi, which for hardcore fans of the game, you want that. You want all the updating.
Not even hardcore fans of the game, it's hardcore fans of the sport. You might have people who are not gamers, but they enjoy playing sports games because it's like, oh, I could play this version of my favorite team or my favorite players in a video game online, and all of a sudden it's no longer accurate. I got to spend another $80 to buy the game again.
And it really takes away from a game because video games are so expensive nowadays. We all know, like, any sort of new game, whether it's sports, it's fantasy themed, it's RPG, it's anything you want to list, first person shooter game. You want a new game, you're dropping minimum, $70-$80.
Well, most
Canadian.
games cost $80 Canadian, but you do have a few games that still drop under. But again, the big problem is that I have with all these games is you're charging $79.99 Canadian, by the way, $79.99. Even some of them I've seen at $89.99 now, the next gen games. But these games are coming out and you're still then adding microtransactions into the game. I talked about this with Simon on the podcast last time, but I mentioned Diablo 4. It's a $90 game that had purchases in shop on day one. And it's not like the game's been running a while, they're not making any more money, then they introduced it or they went free to play. It was in the game to begin with. So you're already paying money and immediately they're trying to get more money. And I actually feel like for a lot of the things you're saying, a free-to-play model on the sports games actually seems like a good idea. Because if you think about it, how much are graphics improving from NHL 21 to 22 to 23 to 24? It's probably quite incremental. They seem like the things that could do with a patch. But what player is really looking at the game saying, I want my graphics to be the best? I don't give a flying about the gameplay. I just want the game to look good. No, everyone cares about the gameplay. So we've kind of hit the point where they could say, okay, we're going to stop developing the graphics engine. We're going to make the gameplay as good as we can. Most of this stuff is updatable, given that we live in the age of online and updates. And they could release one free-to-play game with microtransactions. And theoretically, you're a hardcore fan. So you just used Connor McDavid. Sorry, it wasn't Connor McDavid. The other player you just mentioned.
Tyler Bertuzzi.
And you said he just got traded to the Leafs and you would want to play. So all of a sudden, when the trades happen or the drafts happen, there's an update to the game that starts to add all of this stuff in. Or maybe it's not right away. It might take them time to develop it. But maybe within 1 to 2 weeks of all these drafts or the trades, the new stuff comes in and you would then have a chance to roll it. But no matter what, it could be 2020. If this came out in 2023, in 2025, you could still have everything you had from 2023 and all the new stuff from 2025. So you just have like a rolling library over a long period of time, but they just have to release and create one game.
And I mean, I think ideally a lot of people would appreciate that. Companies like 2K for basketball and wrestling, or for EA that does hockey and American football and worldwide football, they would never do that because they miss out on so much money to not only do this, but one of the features of each game every year is that you have a different cover athlete. So this year, who's the cover athlete for an 8? Oh, this year, the cover athlete is a defenseman by the name of Cale Makar on the Colorado Avalanche, arguably the best defenseman in the league right now. Very dynamic, very cool player to watch, both on TV and in person. So it entices especially those who are Colorado Avalanche fans. You know, if you were to ever fork over the money for a physical copy, get this one. Whereas in previous years, as a Leaf fan, I definitely got NHL 20 because that had Austin Matthews, who is a Leaf, obviously, on the cover. And as a Leaf fan, this was the first time that a Toronto Maple Leafs player had ever been on the cover of an EA NHL game. What happens about a year or two later? He's back on the cover. It kind of makes you realize, okay, there's that extra feature that you want, especially if you're a fan of that. However, for the consumer, you know, more money. Fork it over.
But the truth is I know you just said theoretically, yeah, you could buy it based on the box art and whatever, but every year it could be an update or there could be a season and someone's a face. And theoretically, they could release that merchandise and still sell it, and you just buy it online and be like, oh yeah, there's a box for it with it. But most gamers, I believe nowadays, are buying their games digital.
Absolutely.
And it depends on what you're playing on. A lot of people are on PC, but a lot of consoles are trying to push you. I mean, there was a PS5 that released without even having a disc bay. They're incentivizing you. And there's also a lot of games that when you buy a disc for the game, you're not getting the game on the disc. It's literally just giving you a prompt that it's going to download the game online. So there's no point. But as much as you're talking about, yeah, they're missing out on $79.99 from all the consumers every year, which you're right. All of those also have development costs. It's not all profit. There's going to be on a live service-based game, yeah, you're still going to be developing it over time. But as they release the new stuff, they could have a big annual update every year. And that big annual update could change all the base teams around to whatever the new ones are. They can make all these changes. They can release new things that people have to pay for. And you're probably going to end up making the same money, but then you're not going to have big drop-offs of players in certain months. You know, right now, what game would come out? NHL 2K24?
EA, they straight up just call it like NHL 24.
Yeah, so NHL 24 release. So the player base is going to get split between those who are going to be playing NHL 23 because they don't want to spend the money, or NHL 24. The games would be healthier when the entire audience is in one place. And they'll make more money not having audiences split.
I will also say, in terms of some of the incentives they have to keep you buying the game every single year, even though there aren't really major changes usually each and every year, is for those options like your Hockey Ultimate Team. They're trying it with your dynasty teams, or NHL like GM mode, where you can pretend you're a GM of a team, and so you can make all the moves that a general manager would make, like trading people, signing people, competing for the Stanley Cup every year. They do have certain areas to carry things over, and I know the game's been working on it. I can't tell you 100% how that's going and how consumers actually feel about that. But they do at least have that option. For example, like your Hockey Ultimate Team, they see sort of how high your team got and how much gameplay was put into your team, so that they then give you additional packs, so that at the beginning of the year it allows you to sort of upgrade your team, so it's not just two NHLers and a bunch of guys from the minor leagues and all over Europe. Thing is, though, and like we sort of touched upon earlier in the episode, what's the point of you grinded, or you decided to put extra money into the game so that you can buy these packs, so that you can try to get your Connor McDavid, your Austin Matthews, your Cale Makar, etc.
And then you have to buy it all over again the next year.
The game might, within sort of the memory of it, be like, oh yeah, you have 99 overall team of the year, Connor McDavid. You can't carry that over and then take 99 overall 2023 Connor McDavid and plop him at the beginning of NHL 24, because the game won't let you do that. What's the point of that?
Well, yeah, it just sounds like a way to, instead of making a good game and a good product and bringing it in over time and saying, okay, well, yeah, we're going to let people keep things, but the diehard fans are going to buy new stuff anyways. They're going to want these things, or they're going to accumulate credits by playing the game, and it's going to keep the game healthy. The more people are playing online consistently, the more opportunities there are to make money. Even if they locked out more of the stuff at the beginning of a free-to-play game, or like, oh, the new 2024 update came out, so there's going to be a certain amount of the 2024 stuff that's available for free, but most of the 2024 stuff is going to cost you something. I actually think most people would be like, you know what? I'm okay with that, because you know what? I didn't pay for the game. If I have to grind to get the stuff I want, I will, and then I don't have to get the stuff. Like, you could be like, I hate the Habs. They're the worst team ever. So you know what? I have an extra 200 credits that I earned from playing. The last team to unlock is the Montreal Canadiens 2023. I'm going to let the credits sit. And when 2024 comes out, I'm going to get the 2024 Leafs. Easy.
And I will give, I know the companies like your EAs, your 2Ks, and even in other games, like it is definitely very difficult. I don't envy them whatsoever because you're dealing with game model that every single year you have to have it out by a certain time. There is no off season for them, really. There is no sort of time where you can be like, you know what, we're going to skip 2024. We're just going to try to put in as much change into NHL 2025 as we can so we can make that a much better game.
WWE do that? They skipped a year to fix something, and
they
it
did.
ended up being better.
They screwed up on a catastrophic level. Like you had characters that their faces would just disappear, and all you have are a bunch of eyeballs and some hair showing.
Of Assassin's Creed Unity when it came out.
Do tell.
Basically, there was some really bad glitches in that game that you could have like a hood. It would literally be a hood with eyes and a mouth, and there'd be no face model.
Oh,
it was
God.
Horrifying, and it sounds like WWE did the same thing.
And I mean, at least with those games, I've never seen that sort of happen, but it's a common complaint amongst the community. You know, like, how can you really take the time to do this when every single year around roughly the same time, which for hockey, it's usually like beginning of September, sort of right before the regular season starts. They want to release this game so, you know, you can get all this hype and excitement over the new year and then get all those people to, you know, purchase the game. But I think after a while, because you can improve things up to a certain point. At the end of the day, it's roughly the same thing. It's a game of hockey, football, even baseball I haven't really touched on because the MLB, they do sort of their own series with the game. But at the end of the day, it's the same game roughly over and over again. So I think you're also dealing with just sort of exhaustion. Like myself personally, I haven't looked at the NHL franchise since 21 because during COVID, when there wasn't anything else to do, what am I doing? I'm playing NHL every single day, or mostly every single day, because what else am I going to do to entertain myself? It's like, you know what? Now that world's sort of back to as normal as can be, why am I spending more time playing this exact same game I was doing when we were locked down?
And honestly, I kind of feel like the live service would help with that because I know it's the same game, but then it's like, well, if I want to play NHL, I don't have to, and I want to have the new stuff, I don't have to buy the game again. Or even you talked about the burnout that the developers are probably facing because they have to get it out the same time every year. You don't have to make a whole new game and a whole new engine. You could update things and make improvements over time. But guess what? You're going to be doing that over the year anyways. You're going to be updating constantly. You're going to be balancing. You're going to be doing all of this development as the game is being played. And that's going to be your feedback and your testing. So what happens when the new season comes out? You're already pretty prepared. All you're doing is changing up the teams, which other than adding players, how hard really is it to put the same model in a different shirt or a different jersey? It can't be that difficult as far as I know, or to modify the stats slightly.
I will also say with the new game, I believe they're on a different engine right now. And so what they're doing is they're trying to incorporate it to make it a bit more realistic. So one of the new features that they do have is this system where you're in the offensive zone, you're trying to score a goal, and you keep, you know, trying to shoot it, goalie keeps making a save, or you pass it around and the other team blocks it. What they're doing now is basically having a momentum-based feature in the game where the longer you're in the offensive zone, you're getting more momentum. Your team's moving because, you know, there's that possibility to score. And on the flip side, the defensive team, they're getting a bit more tired, so it'll be a little bit trickier to defend because the more you keep the puck in, like in reality, the defending team is going to be a bit more tired, whereas the team on offense, they're going to be more excited. They're going to be more loosey-goosey.
This sounds like a patch because I just want to use, again, I'm going to use Fortnite for this because Fortnite has been around since 2018 and Fortnite has changed so much from 2018 to 2023. You know, they've added in zero build mode. They've added in stuff like the tactical sprint and all of these things. They didn't say, I think they've even changed the graphics engine, but it's still the same game at the end of the line. And something like you said, a momentum system could be updated into a game. It's not necessarily a situation of we have to have it. And obviously, I understand the business side the other way. We added in this momentum-based system. This is my pitch to get you to buy for another $50. But maybe all of a sudden we've invigorated the gameplay on this live service. We're going to pull back in a lot of players who left. Or it's going to be a circumstance of these players who are playing are going to enjoy the game more and buy, or it's going to pull in new players being like, that's a cool feature, I want to try it.
Absolutely. I think at the end of the day, how much more with trying to keep it realistic can you really do year over year in these sort of updates without any like burnout or your customers sort of getting to a real point of, you know what, screw this franchise, I don't even need to play this anymore. I got other things I could do with my time. So it's really a position I don't envy, even though there definitely are issues with the games like there is everywhere else. However, when you're dealing with video games are expensive and I just purchased the game, why am I now within hours? Why am I already facing a team that has Connor McDavid, Cale Makar, and Andre Vasilevsky, and some of the other best players?
Pay to win.
Exactly. And, game, you're really, I know it's new and there are always bugs and things that need to happen, but why, like, when the excitement basically just poofs immediately. I want at least this feature.
Pay to win.
Really, people, you gotta stop that.
It goes again. We talked about this, Simon and I, about pay to win is a feature that scares new players off gaming because it's like either you could overcome every challenge with your wallet, which de-incentivizes the ability to actually learn, or the problem is you don't end up actually learning anything about the game. I don't know how this applies to sports games. I'm sure there is a pretty severe level of skill between different players in a sports game. I'm sure you with a crappy team would beat me with the God Squad in a sports game because I don't have practice in these games. But the fact is, if you and I put in the same amount of hours, but I spend $200 to get a better team than you, how is that fair? If we both put in the same hours, we should have the same opportunity. And yeah, there's nothing wrong with buying skins. I mean, let's face it, I've spent way more money than I'd like to admit on microtransactions in games. I've probably bought some stuff that's pay to win over time too, but I genuinely believe that if it's a PvP experience, it's not fair to anybody.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. And I mean, at the end of the day, those who want to spend that extra money, companies aren't going to refuse your money. I think it's just a matter of trying to keep it as even as possible in the sense that, okay, so you have just your majority of people, I think, don't want to spend any extra money because they would rather just play the game as is and, spend their money elsewhere. However, with those who want to spend extra money, how do you keep it so that if you're in an online setting and there's a situation where, the better you do, the better the game will reward you? Well, how is it fair me spending $0 on my team going up against someone who's clearly spent $400 in upgrades on their team, yet somehow we're grouped in the same level as things?
It's a whole thing with skill-based matchmaking in these games, but I'm even gonna say I don't think you could really segregate people who've paid for microtransactions and people who have not paid for microtransactions. I don't think that's a good, clean method of fixing the problem. I know that in Call of Duty games in the past, with maps, it used to be like there was a map pass and only certain playlists used the DLC maps. But I don't think that would work anymore. I don't even think live service versus a new game would help with that. I mean, the only reason a live service theoretically will work is because not year over year, someone spending $400, you could still catch up by playing and earning, and maybe it'll take you longer. But if a game is out for 2 years and you're customizing your team the way you want to, you'll probably over time build something comparable. Maybe you won't have the star players you want, but you might still have good players that are good enough. You were talking about score ratings later. Having an average score of 60 versus a score of 90 versus having an 80 versus a 90. At that point, the skill is going to overtake.
Yeah, and I think as well, like at least with your sport games, they do try their best to diversify some of the modes that you can do. So say you don't want to do your Hockey Ultimate Team where you're playing online. They give you the option of, do you want to do just one season where you play the team that you choose as the current roster is, and then within that, just you against the game. You can then, you don't have to spend any money on this. You just play the one season, you try to win the Stanley Cup, or you try your general manager mode where you pretend you're the general manager. You don't play the actual game. You just do sort of the transactions of, I'll trade you X player for Y player, and you try to have your moves the computer will play as your team to see how good your moves really are based on what the game thinks.
I heard an interesting quirk about that mode.
Do share?
I heard that there's actually some would call it a bug. I would consider it a feature that when you play as the Toronto Maple Leafs, it automatically makes you lose.
Other. He doesn't know hockey. Just know that.
But I know gaming. I know a feature.
You do know gaming at least. I do know, like, I listen to a few sport podcasts, and one of them, they actually had one of the members during one of the NHL games play as a couple different teams. Surprisingly, not the Leafs, even though he was a Leaf fan. First general manager mode he did was as one of their rivals, the Buffalo Sabres, who at the time when the game was released, they weren't a very good team. So some people, they want that challenge of, okay, I want to take a team that isn't very good, but I want to try to get them to eventually win the Stanley Cup. So, you know, you try to make your moves there. So different people want that challenge even within the within the game, like Inception style. It gives you these different options.
Hey, man, I hear you like a game, so I put a game in your game so you can play a game while you game.
Yeah, kind of like that, a little bit exhibit like that. But the game at least tries, sometimes better than other years, but definitely tries, especially within sports, because at the end of the game, if it's whether basketball, football, hockey, soccer, it's been the same. It's been for like hundreds of years, if not decades, many decades, you know. Play to win the game. What's the game? Score more goals than your opponent, hit more runs than your opponent, get more points than your opponent. So how much different can you really make it while also trying to keep it as realistic?
That sounds like the benefit of a live service. I think we said it earlier, but you're not changing the base mechanics of a game. So who cares if you don't release another one every year or you keep things the same year over year? The graphics of a game doesn't necessarily have to change. Call of Duty games all look the same nowadays. They're also charging you $80 for the game and charging you microtransactions on day one. And I know with Warzone they've made it a little better, but things don't really carry over game.
How many hours Call of Duty players, like myself, actually will grind in those games, whether they spend money on microtransactions or not.
But think about Warzone. Warzone 1 had all the stuff from 3 different games in it. You had Call of Duty, Modern Warfare. You had, I think that's right. It was Modern Warfare, Black Ops 4, just the newer Black Ops, and then Vanguard. And all 3 of those games led into the same Warzone. But then when Modern Warfare 2 released, they released Warzone 2 and DMZ, but they completely cut Warzone 1. So everything you had bought from Warzone 1 didn't carry over.
And how long was of a time frame was that from, like, year?
So the original Warzone, I believe, lasted 3 years, and then Warzone 2 was it was 2.5 to 3 years, I believe. But then nothing carried over. And I actually have heard that when they advertise certain cosmetics in Modern Warfare 2 now, with Modern Warfare 3 coming out in probably September, October, November of this year, you'll actually see them saying this transaction carries over to Modern Warfare 3. Because people are scared of buying right now because, like, we know the new game is coming. Why should I spend money? So they're protecting themselves by saying, hey, it will carry over. Don't worry about it.
Is this any different from the, like, older versions of Modern Warfare 2 and 3, like that was on PlayStation?
Yeah, so I don't know why they did this, but there was Modern Warfare 1, 2, and 3. Then there's Modern Warfare 2019, but it's just called Modern Warfare. And then there's Modern Warfare 2 of 2022.
Kind of Star Wars-ish of them, like how they started at 4, 5, 6, then went to like 1, 2, 3, but didn't exactly.
It's like a reboot, but it doesn't make any sense.
That's, very interesting. Because, I mean, a lot of people, especially, and with sports games, like a lot of the time it's like, what was the best one? They go back to when they were younger. So, like, the early 2000s or late 1990s of NHL games, a lot of people hold with a lot of reverence. And it's the same with, I think for Call of Duty especially, it's Modern Warfare 2 or Black Ops 1. A lot of people claim...
Black Ops 1.
Yeah, I was always a Black Ops 1 player myself. A lot of good hours on that.
No, but the thing is that, like, even for me, who's a non-sports player, if I think about sport games, I'm thinking about stuff from the GameCube. Back in my university days with a friend, we used to play drinking games about NBA.
Oh, NBA.
I'm not going to go in. I don't think I'm going to go into details on this podcast. I want to, I don't think talking about drinking games is going to get me very far.
Save it for a later episode if the money talks.
But the whole thing is like, yeah, even I have positive memories from the older games. And it's just because maybe they're a little more arcadey. That I think there was a certain point in these games is that as they couldn't be realistic, so they went a little more in the direction of being arcadey.
I know one of the older NHL games, I forget off the top of my head, it might have been either 2011 or 12, I'm not 100% sure. They did have an arcade style mode where basically your player was kind of they had a big head. You didn't really play like any differently. Just if your player got hit, you could see their tiny body go one way and their big head sort of like fall a little bit. But realistically, it was just a fun little arcade mode. Like no one's going out of their way to purchase the game because, oh, hey, you got you got fat head mode.
But it's fun. It's a little Easter egg.
It is definitely. I guess another reason to justify the high first purchase point and then within the microtransactions. I just know, I think over time, especially with like your Hockey Ultimate team, people are a bit more, it's lost sort of its newness to it. Whereas I think when it first came out in, I want to say it was 2011, you were able to sort of make your in-game purchases through that mode, but it was so new. So everyone was like, ooh, like I can't wait to spend my money and try to get like the best players of the day back then. And I think with those games, there were a lot less themed players. So when you pulled at that time, I want to say the two best players in the game that you could have pulled were Sidney Crosby and Alex Ovechkin. When you pulled Sidney Crosby or Alex Ovechkin, there really was just the one version you could pull.
It was a big deal.
It was an extremely big deal. And I do remember my good friend actually called me one day after high school and told me about it, and I was losing my mind for him because he spent a lot of time playing NHL and just opening pack after pack digitally. I believe if there was any extra money in, he would have done it through like PlayStation gift cards. But there you go. There's your extra money that you put in. But eventually, whether it was like for his birthday or for Christmas money, he eventually pulled that, and it was absolutely amazing. And it was such a high that any other year that followed really couldn't reach that same high.
Because once you've done it once, who cares? You've already done it. You've already accomplished it. Why can't I bring it with me? And that's going to be that's always the problem, is why can't the things that I've done come with me? Why am I paying $80 to then spend more money to then pay $80 again? Or more. Yeah, exactly. Eventually it's going to go up. It just sounds like a bad bit. Well, I wouldn't say a bad business model, because look, if they keep, money speaks, right? If people keep doing it, they're going to keep releasing it. They're going to keep doing it because it's clearly working. You can't de-incentivize someone from doing something when it works.
And I mean, at the end of the day, where are they really going to make their money nowadays when you're already such a big franchise and there really is only so much you could do on first release day to keep the money flowing in?
Well, let me ask you a question, and we could kind of end it on this question. If it was a live service game that was completely free to start, but you had these microtransactions, you could even have fun, like big head people as like as a microtransaction, would you prefer it that way, where it's a free game and you get a little bit of stuff for free, but everything is going to cost money through either in-game currency earned by playing or by microtransactions? Or would you rather have more stuff to begin with, but you have to pay every year for entry?
I think a lot of fans would prefer the first option, just sort of the one-time either payment or the one-time signing up if it's free to start or free to play to start. And then eventually within the game, then you made your transactions then, because to spend $80, $90 every year for essentially a roster update, I think people get tired of it. Unless you really have to have your hardcore of hardcore fans that every year, oh, I'm just going to purchase the new basketball game, new hockey game, new football game, new baseball game, et cetera, et cetera. I think personally you need a break. You need a break from it. And I know myself growing up, there may have been a couple times where I would have purchased a game shortly thereafter, but I never really ever until the lockdown would spend money on one game and then a year later spend it on the new version of it because it's all this money for essentially a roster update. There's no real big improvement from 2010 to 2011, 2014 to 2015, 2019 to 2020.
It almost sounds like it's better to just buy the game every 5 years when there'll actually be improvements. It's like buying cell phones. Why, if I have an iPhone 12, why would I buy an iPhone 13? It's incremental. If I have an iPhone 12, buy an iPhone 15.
Yeah. And I think, again, depending on how dedicated of a sports fan you are, there probably is just 1 year of the game you'd want because that's when your team, the base version of your team, is at its best. You know, a lot happens in the sports world. You know, 1 year your team could win the championship, and the next year you're absolutely terrible because everyone's left or everyone's hurt.
Like the Raptors.
Exactly. You know, Kawhi said peace. He wanted to go home. And so those who probably own 2K19 the year the Raptors won absolutely probably love that game because you got Kawhi Leonard on the Raptors, Kyle Lowry, young Pascal Siakam, who is still on the Raptors and has improved, but it's not the same. Like 2019 was so far the best year ever for them, and the only way you can eclipse that is with another championship win, which is extremely difficult to do in any sport.